Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here is part 2 on this VOLVO XC90 prep, mask, match and paint job. If you haven't already seen part 1, I do recommend going back and watching that one first. This video will be here waiting for you, so you don't have to watch this one first unless you just want to see the spray painting stage, in which that's cool, whatever, doesn't bother me. Yeah, so we got the entire job prepped up, color matched, masked up. We got some wet on wet primer or sealer onto the new door shell, and yeah, we're ready to wipe it all down with wax and grease remover, or Prepsol it's commonly referred to as, and yeah, just wiping it down with the sterile wipes. They're called Sontara wipes. And yeah, next up, just grabbing a tack rag, opening it up to a relatively clean section. You don't want to be using dirty tack rags. They're not that expensive. You're talking about maybe $1 to $2 a pop for a tack rag. So, you know, if they're dirty after 2 or 3 jobs, get a new one. You know, because the way I see it, if it's going to save even just 3 or 4 bits of dust in a job, well, it's paid for itself. You know what I mean? It's paid for itself in your time in polishing, which nobody likes polishing except for those detailers. They love it. Oh well, I mean, maybe there are some spray painters out there that like polishing, but I can tell you now, I'd much rather be in a spray booth painting some shit than out the back polishing shit. But all that aside, I'm putting down some 599 first, which is basically just clear base coat or colorless base coat. The one I'm using is just a straight up tinter off the Standox mixing machine, the Standox solvent basis lac mixing machine, and yeah, the number is 599. So I mix that 1-to-1 with thinners, just base coat thinners, and then just spray it down. Basically what it does is fills in your prep scratches, and yeah, it helps the blend. So on a color like this, if I wasn't to use it, I could just about guarantee that I would have a bit of a halo around where my color was. Yeah, it's just something that I don't do enough to know whether or not it would look okay, but I do know that there are some systems like, what is it, Cyrox, and even the Octoral water system, which I have used a few times, which is basically the same stuff as De Beer water, I've been told, and I do believe it. I know, yeah, a lot of that does happen in the paint world. They just rebrand exactly the same product, put a different label on it and sell it as a different product. Sometimes they'll boost the price, sometimes they'll halve the price, but either way, now I've got that 599 down. While that's flashing off for a minute or two, I'm getting the first coat of color, base coat color down onto the door shell you see here. Yeah, got to spray inside and out of it. Obviously got the VOLVO DV1 1.2 HVLP Plus I was using on this job, yeah, the digital version, and yeah, I have mentioned it in a few other videos, but you may not have seen them, so I guess I'll mention it again, that the digital version of the DV1s, the pressure will actually be out, well, from my experience, and it's actually an email that Spray Guns Direct forwarded to me through from DeVilbus themselves, is that if you get a gauge down the bottom of your spray gun, where most of us usually put your analog cheater valve gauge down the bottom there, it will read, say, 2 bar down the bottom, but up the top on this digital gauge it'll read 1.5 bars. So just keep that in mind when you are setting the pressure on your DV1. You don't really want to go and spray the DV1 digital at what says 2 bar at the digital gauge, because you'll be essentially running it at like 2.5 bars, so massively over pressure. It's something that I noticed first up. Like, I didn't realize that was the case at the start, but I was spraying clear with it at 1.5 bar. I just thought, wow, this is something new, you know. I wouldn't expect this to atomize so well at 1.5 bar, but the truth is it wasn't 1.5 bar. Well, I mean, it was, but not at the general place that I read my pressure from, which is at the base of the gun. So yeah, they've altered this gun to make it read the air pressure from a different point of the gun, and yeah, supposedly they do have a reason for doing that, longevity of the digital gauge. So hopefully, yeah, they will last a little bit longer than the previous, I think they were called like DJI Pro Pod or something like that. And I heard some stories, like I did have one, but I ended up selling it to a guy, and anyway, I've heard of people running out of battery life in their DJI Pro pods, and yeah, they'd call up, oh, can I get the battery changed? And they'd end up actually it costs more to replace the batteries in those things than it does to just send them out a whole new unit. So that's what people supposedly had. If they were able to get back in contact with the supplier and they had a good supplier, they would end up just sending out a new pod. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, But yeah, the pressure that I have been spraying this DV1 digital at is around 1 bar at the digital gauge. So as I say, that would probably be close to around 1.5 bar if I was to put a standard gauge down the bottom of the gun. But yeah, I find that atomizes the metallic paints really well at 1 bar. But yeah, Cyrox is a water-based system that has kind of got my attention. I've heard a few good stories about it. I've never used it, but yeah, I like the price of it, and I've heard even a few paint reps say, they're like, man, it sprays like a premium brand, but it's priced at a budget brand. So look, in the future, probably, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, I'm looking at starting my own small body shop again, and that is a system that I will definitely be trialing before I decide on exactly which paint system I'll use. But I would like to go water when I'm in my own shop. I mean, yeah, this place here, they just like the solvent. The boss, he's kind of old school, and when I came back here, I said, oh, have you ever thought about water? And he goes, not in 100 years or not in 1,000,000 years, mate. So, well, I mean, unless the Australian government does step in and make it so that solvent is so expensive that you can't buy it, this shop here is going to be solvent for a while, I can imagine. Well, as long as my bosses own it anyway, so it's all good. I like it. It's just it's one of those things that I've been using it for quite some time. I know how to use it. There's some people that have only sprayed water, they go over to solvent and they just think it's terrible, so each to their own, I guess. But yeah, I can spray both. I don't mind spraying water. I do like the speed of solvent. You can speed the job up a little bit because flash off times are quite low. The solvents evaporate out nice and quickly, but yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's just a standard 3-coat system most of the time. Sometimes you do get the reds and certain yellows and maybe even certain greens that do need an extra couple of coats. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, your standard metallics like this kind of a colour, you're looking at 2.5 really. Like, you've usually got visual coverage after your second coat. I usually do put my second coat on of the Standox pretty heavy with this system, closer to wet than medium wet. Not full wet, you're not going to smash it on like a coat of clear or anything, but yeah, try to get visual coverage after your second coat. And your third coat is just a medium wet one to get the metallics to lay down nicely, get that blend looking good as you see me doing now. And yeah, a lot of the time, especially on a hotter day, I'll just drop that pressure down, sometimes even as low as like 0.8 of a bar for the last coat. But that's one of those things that, I might do that, the next painter might not do that, and they are able to get just as good results as what I am with slightly different methods. So it's one of those things that you just got to have a play around with the guns, the settings, and see what works for you. And I'm kind of lucky that I get to do this stuff on the daily. Some people may not, obviously, that are trying to watch these videos and pick it up, and then you might just say, well, this is what Gunny did, it's not working for me. But there are many variables in this trade that's going to affect the finish that you're going to get. The pressures, even the temperatures of the day, the kind of paint you're using, how have you thinned it down properly. There's lots of variables. So yeah, even when it comes to clear coat, you might say, oh well, Gunny used his clear and he didn't put any thinners in it or any reducer in it. Like this clear that I'm using now, there's no reducer in it. It's called Standox Standard Clear, but then the next clear, you might need 10% reducer in it, or you might need 3 or 5% reducer in it on a hot day, but then you might need closer to 10% on a colder day. So as I say, there is lots of variables, and that's where the experience comes into play to get consistently good finishes, but either way, we are ready to clear, and I've got my Vigilante out, and just giving it a good tack rag down before I do clear it. It definitely does make a big difference in the amount of dust that you get in the final finish if you give your jobs a good tack rag down before clear coat. So yeah, there's the settings on screen if you miss them. Yeah, fan full, fluid full, and 2 bar pressure. Again, it's something that on a really hot day I might even drop that pressure down a little bit to say 1.8 bar. But I found, you know, 2 bar or 29 psi is a good benchmark all year round. You know, you might go a little bit higher in winter, you might go a touch lower in summer or something like that, but yeah, 2 bars, just, yeah, good benchmark anyway. So yeah, TE20 is the air cap that I'm using. So I did mention it in another video recently. I've got the T110 air cap when I got my latest DeVilbiss Pro Lite. I used it on a few jobs, and yeah, they were coming out too good. And I was also using a little bit more clear. So I do find that just for your average everyday finishes on refinishing work like this, TE20 is the way to go. It's the one that I will recommend most people in the trade. You know, if you're doing more custom work, yeah, maybe go for the T110. And if you're going for, you know, your flatter glasser finishes with less thick orange peel in it, look, at the end of the day, you're always going to get some sort of orange peel in your clear coat. I found, like, at least some sort of a texture to the finish, you know what I mean? Like, orange peel seems to be like a bit of a loosely defined term, I think. Like, what you might say, oh, I've got orange peel in this job. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, you got a really thick finish to it with like lots of material, or you got a dry peel, or, you know. So yeah, I just have found that this gets the factory finishes easiest. So, you know, this is the European style, so I'll slow it down a little bit, put a little bit more material on. Whereas if I'm doing a Japanese car, I'll speed it up a touch, and it's something that you can replicate all finishes, or most finishes, quite easily. Whereas if you're going for something, if you're like doing a full respray and you want something dead flat, and you're doing, say, a flow coat, yeah, I might even go for the T110, but yeah, most times I can't see myself using it that much, honestly. It's something that a lot of Americans do ask. They're like, oh, I want the T110, and I don't think you guys have that cap in America for the reason that you've got some pretty strict EPA laws over there. So yeah, just restricting the kind of spray guns that you're even allowed, which I think, yeah, kind of sucks for the spray painters. And honestly, yeah, it's a little bit better for the environment, I guess. On a large scale of, you know, such a big country, yeah, it's probably not a bad idea for the environment, you know. But yeah, here in Australia, we're still cowboys, mate. We've only got a small population. What have we got, like 25 million? So yeah, we can just spray those VOCs into the air and without a care, baby. But yeah, the clear coat I'm using, look, it's not the best clear coat on the market. That's the Standox Standard Clear. It's a funny one. Like, when I first started spraying this, I thought, oh yeah, it's a VOC clear, you know, so you can tack and whack it. And then I looked into it a little bit more, and it's like, it's actually not even a VOC clear, but it uses a VOC hardener. It's a weird one, and it was only actually like last week that I quizzed one of the paint reps on it, and he's like, yeah, it's a hybrid clear, so it's like between MS and HS. So yeah, it takes a HS hardener, but it's not it takes a VOC hardener, but it's not a VOC clear. So yeah, it's a funny one. The quality of it's good, but sometimes you can struggle to get that European finish because it is that little bit thinner, you know, especially in summer when the heat does thin the clear down a little bit more. But yeah, it's something that I can just get it, but you really have to work it a little bit harder and like just pump it on a little bit wetter to get that European finish. So yeah, like when I used to work in a prestige workshop back in Melbourne, we were using the Glazeret 255 clear, which was like a proper HS clear, and you could just get those European style finishes with ease straight out of the, you know, HVLP I was using. I think it was the H3, yeah, back in the days when I was using the GTI Pros, and yeah, the bosses made me use the HVLPs because the paint company sold them the old, you know, oh, you'll save more paint using the HVLP. And I actually did struggle at the start. Like, I just couldn't get it to lay the clear down nicely. I was getting like excessive orange peel, like really thick finishes, and even runs sometimes. And then I had a guy come out, Tim was his name, from Colourtech ART in Melbourne. Shout out to Tim. He was, yeah, good dude. always liked getting a bit of advice from him. And yeah, I don't know, that was like over 10 years ago now, but yeah, he just came in and I was like a fish to water. He just told me a couple of key points, you know, and then bang, my finishes just improved immensely with HVLP. And yeah, the main thing was just distance. Like I was probably holding the gun back a little bit too far, and the second thing was pressure. I probably had the pressure a little bit too low, because when I was new to HVLP, I'm like, yeah, LP, like low pressure. But yeah, prior to getting that guy come in and give me a hand, I was just winging it. I didn't even have a gauge on my gun. I was just, you know, whatever sounds right on the spray gun, I'd just go and spray. So, you know, being the LP next to it, it's when you get that thing at 2 bar, that sounds really high. It's because of the volume of pressure, oh sorry, the volume of air that is coming out. It's like, that sounds like you are absolutely pumping it on, compared to what I used to use, which is like the T2 air cap. So I'm like, I never would have on my own just been like, oh, you need to run these things at 2 bar. But yeah, turns out you do have to, and just hold them a little bit closer when you are using your HVLP guns. And yeah, look, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but the job's just about done anyway. I just about made it through this video and chewed your ear off for the entire thing. So as you probably noticed up the front there, where I did have that little bit of a spot repair on the front bumper, I just put a little bit of fade out thinner over the edge of the clear coat. That'll get buffed in, or it did get buffed in the following day. And yeah, my detailing man out the back gave it a polish for me as I was spraying the next job. So all's well that ends well. Yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy watching the vid. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for loads more videos to come in the future. Yeah, as I say, like in the future, I am going to start my own workshop again in, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. We'll see how we go. So, you know, it's not too soon, but it'll happen. And there's lots of videos that I would like to revisit. I've got so many things that I would like to do with this channel that I never really get the time to. But yeah, I want to set myself up in life, get sort of a bit ahead in life, and then, you know, I can just take a day or two and just do a bit of a video series, and yeah, spend more time on the YouTube channel. Things like doing clear coat reviews. You know, we can get some top line clears, some bottom of the line clears, and just have a test panel and mask out certain sections of it and whack it out in that Australian sun for a year. See how, come back to it in a year, see how it goes. Come back to it in 2 to 5 years in the sun and see how, you know, the budget clears hold up against the top of the line clears. And yeah, many more ideas like that as well. You know, your body fillers, all those kind of things. Yeah, even just solvent versus water. See, you know, if the solvent-based paint does sort of, you know, degrade faster over time than the water-based paint. So yeah, lots of things to come. Anyway, that's the job. I was pretty happy with how it came up. Yeah, a few D-nibs in it, and nothing too major though. Something that, yeah, I take a bit of pride in doing a job like that. And what's not to like about getting to slam a couple of nice coats of clear down and make things look shiny? Who doesn't like making, you know, things look shiny? And I get paid to do it. Best job in the world. It's not all glamorous though, seriously. Sometimes it's just hard work and it's dedication, you know. And like, we had to paint these lights last week, and that's just a real hard slog doing industrial work. Like, it's not glamorous, it's just repetitive tasks. And hey, yeah, job's a job. Sometimes you just got to get in and get it done and get on to the next one. So there you go, there's that job all done. Hope you guys, as I say, did enjoy watching it. Stay tuned for the next one. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more. Now you've seen this video, get out there and paint some shit. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.